The scent of motor oil and warm steel still clung to my work shirt as I pulled into my driveway. 12 hours at the shop had left me drained, and all I wanted was a glimpse of my pride and joy, my 1967 Camaro SS. I'd spent a year and a half turning it from a rust-eaten wreck into a showpiece. I hit the garage remote and the door creaked open, unveiling chrome so bright it could catch the sun and paint so rich it looked like you could dive right in. Then everything turned upside. "Down!" Voice shouting. "Call the police! He's stealing that car!" Brenda, my neighbor and HOA president, stormed across the lawn like she was charging into battle, phone already pressed to her ear. "Yes, there's a man taking my car right now. Send officers immediately." Sirens were already echoing from blocks away. She'd called before even speaking to me. I stood in my own driveway, holding my own keys, looking at my own car, seconds from being accused of theft. What would you do if your neighbor falsely reported you to the police in your own driveway? Drop a flag emoji in the comments. I want to see where you're watching from. My name's Marcus, and I'm a third-generation mechanic. My grandfather taught my father taught me, and for 60 years we've been keeping this town's engines alive. After my divorce last spring, sparked by my ex deciding that grease under fingernails wasn't charming, I used what little I had left to buy a modest home in Willowbrook Estates. The real estate agent promised it was a friendly, well-kept community where everyone minded their own business. The Camaro wasn't some impulsive midlife purchase. I spotted it at an estate sale, a corroded shell most people would have scrapped for pocket change. But under all that rust, I saw the bones of true American muscle ready to roar again. I paid $3,200 and brought her home. From that day, weekends became my personal restoration mission. A rebuilt 350 small block, fresh turbo 400 transmission, complete suspension overhaul. 4 months alone went into sanding, priming, and wet sanding until the Hugger orange finish looked ready for a magazine cover. I took photos of every bolt and receipt for insurance, enough to fill a binder as thick as a phone book. That's when Brenda entered the picture. A real estate agent with a spotless white BMW, manicured nails, and hair that somehow never moved. She'd been HOA president for years, mostly because no one else wanted the job. Her specialty was citing rules most people didn't even know existed. Trash cans out too long, fence posts a fraction off spec, mailbox fonts not matching the community standard. She once measured my grass with a ruler. 2 weeks before the garage incident, she marched over while I was working on brake lines. "Excuse me," she said. "There's a noise ordinance. No power tools after 6. I kept calm. "City ordinance. Allows hobby work until 9, I replied. Her smile froze over. "We'll see about that. This kind of activity affects property values." The morning of the disaster started with her monthly backyard gathering. Over the noise of small talk and clinking glasses, I heard her voice. "That's my new Camaro. Bought it for 45 grand. Should be delivered next week." She was showing guests photos on her phone, photos of a car identical to mine. Later that day, after a quick trip for brake fluid, I came home to find her standing stiff in her driveway, eyes locked on my car, like she was confirming a target. By nightfall, I'm sure she'd convinced herself I had somehow stolen the vehicle she'd only imagined owning. So when 2 patrol cars pulled up, lights flashing, I knew my Saturday night was over. 4 officers stepped out, moving like they'd been called to a serious crime. Officer Rodriguez, an experienced man with calm eyes, approached first. "Evening, sir. We've had a report of a stolen car at this address." The claim hit me like a brick. "Stolen! This is my car, at my house." Brenda appeared beside them, pointing. "That's him. He took my Camaro. Paid for it yesterday. They're delivering it this week." I stayed calm, remembering my dad's advice. Paperwork beats panic every time. I pulled up my photo album, showing Rodriguez step-by-step shots from rusted frame to finished masterpiece. He studied them with interest. "This is impressive work. You do this professionally? Family trade, I said. We don't do sloppy. Brenda waved printouts at the younger officer, clearly stock photos from a dealer website. No VIN, numbers, no receipts, nothing real. When asked for documentation, she said it was still processing. I, meanwhile, grabbed my thick binder from the garage. Here's my DMV registration, I said. My name, my address, the matching VIN dated 18 months ago. Rodriguez's flashlight passed over every detail. Everything matched perfectly. I flipped to the next page. My insurance policy, complete with the required photos of... The restoration progress shots were part of my agreed value coverage for insurance. Officer Chen kept jotting notes, occasionally glancing at Brenda as her explanations grew more imaginative. She was unraveling faster than a loose sweater, and I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Officers, he forged everything. He's probably running some big scam, she blurted. That was my signal to bring out the ultimate proof. From the very back of my binder, I slid out a sheet of yellow. Legal paper, edges worn from years of being handled. In the shaky handwriting of a 93-year-old widow, it read, 1967 Chevrolet Camaro. Condition, as is. Extensive rust damage. $3,200 cash. Buyer assumes all responsibility. Beneath that was her signature, practically a historical artifact, followed by a phone number and date from 18 months earlier. Rodriguez studied it like he'd just uncovered a lost relic. This is the original sale document? He asked. I nodded. Eleanor Hutchinson had been selling her late husband's project cars. Sweetest lady you'd ever meet. I'd promised her I'd bring the car back when it was finished. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear a sprinkler system 2 houses over. Chen shut his notebook with the authority of a judge. Ma'am, this gentleman has clear proof of ownership going back more than a year. What you've given us is just printed pictures from the internet. Rodriguez's voice took on that tone officers reserve for people making serious mistakes. Ma'am, filing a false police report is a misdemeanor here. People have faced real legal consequences for knowingly giving false information. Brenda's face went pale. There's been a misunderstanding. Car shopping can be confusing, she said, but her eyes told another story. As they left, I caught her watching me from behind her living room blinds, gaze sharp and calculating. This wasn't over. This was just the first round. Monday morning hit like a diesel engine backfiring. I shuffled to my mailbox in yesterday's clothes, coffee in hand, and found an official HOA violation notice tucked inside like a venomous snake. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. A $200 fine and 48-hour compliance deadline. The supposed offender? My Ford Transit work van, complete with Rodriguez Family Auto on the side. Perfectly legal, perfectly ordinary. And at the bottom, Brenda's signature, big and bold. From my kitchen window, I saw her speed walking past my driveway, glaring at my van like it was parked in the middle of a flower bed. Her morning jog route now included a suspiciously high number of laps past my house. I counted 17. Most people don't realize HOA rules are legally binding contracts. My divorce lawyer taught me that every claim leaves a paper trail, and paper trails don't lie. So I spent lunch at the county courthouse, digging through public records like a treasure hunter. What I found felt like hitting a jackpot. I'd bought that van in 2017, 3 years before Willowbrook's 2120 commercial vehicle ban. Anything owned before that was grandfathered in and exempt. Brenda had no authority here. I put together a rock-solid written response with copies of my proof and hand-delivered it to the HOA office. The receptionist's eyes went wide as she read it. Oh my. Mrs. Wilson isn't going to like this, she murmured. She was right. By Wednesday, my mailbox had turned into her complaint drop box. 3 new notices arrived. Alleged oil Stains on my driveway. I pressure wash it monthly. Strong automotive smells from my garage. Apparently WD-40 is offensive now. And noise complaints for work I did during perfectly legal hours. She was flooding me with paperwork, hoping something would stick. That's when I made my smartest move yet. Full home surveillance. 4 high-definition security cameras with night vision recording to the cloud. Soon I had footage of her pacing along our property line every morning, taking pictures, even measuring distances with a collapsible yardstick. She'd turned neighborhood patrolling into her personal sport. Then came her next strike, a notice for an emergency board meeting about my ongoing violations. Delivered at 4 p.m. for a meeting at 7, barely within the legal window and clearly designed to stop me from preparing a defense. I showed up expecting a biased hearing. What I found was worse. 3 women at a table like they were planning. A bake sale. Brenda, her timid assistant Clara, and Janet, whose only roles seemed to be nodding in agreement. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, taking a seat. "This is all we need for tonight," Brenda said, smiling like she'd already won. "We're issuing an emergency ban on all automotive repair activities, effective immediately. Past violations carry a $500 fine. I pulled out my phone and I opened the HOA bylaws I'd studied that afternoon. Knowledge is useful, but knowing how to use it is a tactical nuke." "Interesting proposal," I said. "But Section 4.3 requires 7 days' notice for any voting matters." I scrolled through the PDF like I was browsing a menu. And Section 4.7 says you need 5 board members present for an official vote. I looked around the nearly empty room. I count 3. This meeting has all the legal weight of a neighborhood. Book club. Clara, Brenda's sidekick, flushed pink. "Well, this is just preliminary discussion." "And Section 2.9 says invalid meetings create personal liability for individual board members," I interrupted. Brenda's smile faltered. 3 hours of legal research and enough coffee to fuel a rocket had done its job. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" she snapped. "Coming into our neighborhood with your projects. My dad always told me, stay calm, stick to the facts, and let people talk themselves into trouble. I think I'm a homeowner who reads contracts before signing them," I replied. Novel concept. That night, neighbor Tom stopped by my driveway looking sheepish. "Most of us think she's lost it," he admitted. "Coffee tomorrow? We should talk." Friday morning brought a knock at 7:15 a.m. Dave Martinez from City Code Enforcement, clipboard in hand. "Anonymous complaint about unlicensed auto repair. Mind if I look around?" I led him into my garage. The smell of clean motor oil and polish hung in the air. Every wrench, socket, and tool was in its place. "This is cleaner than most commercial shops I visit," he said, swiping a finger across my workbench and finding no dust. "It's just a hobby," I explained. "No customers, weekends only." He nodded. "The complaint claimed you were running a business. I see no evidence of that. You're good to go." As he stepped into his truck, he added, "Off the record, I've been here 4 times this month for different anonymous complaints. Same voice every time. Brenda's next move came via certified mail, a formal complaint to my homeowner's insurance. She told them my garage was a fire hazard. When my agent, Bill, showed up, I braced for red tape. Instead, he spent 10 minutes admiring my Camaro's engine bay. "Your safety setup's better than most commercial garages," he said, signing, off without hesitation. A week later, his company sent Brenda a cease and desist letter warning her to stop filing false claims. But she wasn't done. She turned to the Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group, which appeared overnight. Her first post showed pictures of my van and garage, captioned with sugary concern about keeping our community standards high and suggesting some activities might be better suited for industrial areas. Tom showed me screenshots over coffee. "It's like watching a train wreck," he said. Within an hour, 23 people joined. Some defended me, sharing their own HOA horror stories. Others stayed silent. When Brenda started deleting opposing comments, the group split into factions and arguments broke out over everything from free speech to property values. Sunday morning, things got physical. I walked outside to find 24 roofing nails scattered across my driveway. My cameras caught a hooded figure at 2 a.m., moving with the awkward speed of someone who wasn't used to sneaking around. Even blurry, the walk looked familiar. Officer Morgan reviewed my report and photos. "This is a classic harassment pattern," he said. "Keep documenting. Cases like this can turn into arrests quickly." While rechecking the footage, I noticed something worse. Brenda's morning walks now included slow, careful surveys of my property line, phone in hand, measuring distances and taking pictures from multiple angles. This wasn't random. She was planning something. By Wednesday, the stakes went higher. An anonymous letter arrived. "You don't belong here. Leave or there will be consequences." No signature, no return address, but the paper and print matched her HOA notices exactly. Detective Martinez from the police reviewed it. "Anonymous threats like this can qualify as a hate crime," she said. "We're building a strong case." That night, Tom's quiet coffee group expanded to 6. Dozens of households came prepared, each clutching their own Brenda horror file. Mike, the lawyer, had been fined for using a non-approved mailbox font. Sarah, the accountant, was cited for planting flowers without first bowing to the architectural committee. "Enough," Tom declared, stirring his coffee like he was leading a revolution. "One person complains, they get ignored. A united front gets noticed." As we swapped battle stories and shared legal strategies, I realized Brenda had built the one thing that could undo her. A united, angry neighborhood with valid complaints and the skills to fight back. The predator had turned into prey. By Friday afternoon, I was in the basement of the county courthouse, a fluorescent-lit dungeon that smelled like stale coffee and lost hope. The records clerk, who looked like she'd been here since the Carter era, pointed me to research. "Room B, with all the excitement of someone sending you to clean a public restroom. HOA financials are in the corporate filings," she wheezed, shoving a dust-covered box toward me. "Good luck making sense of that." 3 hours later, buried in paperwork that looked like a tornado had hit an accounting firm, I found out why Brenda protected these files like state secrets. Willowbrook's HOA ledgers read like a tutorial in creative theft. $15,000 to B&B Property Solutions for vague consulting. $8,500 to Brenda's Best Gardens for landscaping that never appeared. $12,000 to Wilson and Associates for legal work, starting exactly when Brenda's divorce did. The kicker? All three shared the same address, 1247 Maple Lane, Brenda's home. A quick check of the state's business registry confirmed it. B&B Property Solutions? Brenda, sole owner, created 6 months after her divorce filing. Brenda's Best Gardens? Shut down last year without completing a single project. Wilson and Associates? Her ex-husband's law firm, perfect for funneling money without leaving a paper trail. Over 2 years, our HOA president had quietly siphoned about $78,000 into her personal legal defense. But the real shock came when I spotted a deeper pattern. Cross-referencing complaint dates with property sales, I uncovered her true scheme. Target homeowners with relentless rule violations until they sold cheap, then use her real estate license to flip the properties to investors. Double commission plus kickbacks from grateful buyers. 3 families had already been run out. The Hendersons sold $40K under appraisal after endless noise complaints about their kids' basketball hoop. The Patels left after weekly odor violations targeting their cooking. My case fit her playbook perfectly. Single owner, no. Local family, high-value property worth $380K. The ultimate twist was hiding in a pile of foreclosure notices, and it made me laugh out loud in that silent room. Brenda's own house was in default. She owed $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues to her own HOA. Back taxes, legal fees, credit card debt, the works. Her foreclosure hearing, 4 weeks away, everything snapped into focus. The harassment, the false reports. She wasn't just power hungry, she was desperate, cornered, and looking to score one last big commission before losing everything. The Camaro incident had given her the perfect excuse to move fast. I copied every document. My hands shaking slightly as the copier churned page after page. $17 in fees to expose my neighbor's corruption. Worth every cent. Walking out to my truck, I called Tom. "You sitting down? Because what I found changes everything." This war was shifting from defense to all-out offense, and Brenda didn't even see the walls closing in. By Saturday morning, Tom's garage had turned into mission control for Operation Takedown Brenda. The smell of coffee and motor oil mixed with the sweet scent of coming justice. Around a battered folding table sat our suburban dream team. Sarah Morgan, forensic accountant, could spot fraud faster than a bloodhound finds bacon. Mike Patterson, semi-retired corporate lawyer, enjoyed dismantling people in depositions. Linda Martinez, veteran high school teacher, had organizational skills rivaling NASA. Carlos Mendez, contractor, knew every building code loophole in 3 counties. "This woman's theft has all the subtlety of a brick through a window," Sarah muttered, spreading the financial records across the table like a crime scene tech. Mike scanned the pages with predatory focus. 78 grand in fake transactions, documented harassment. This is a prosecutor's dream. Linda started mapping a color-coded timeline linking harassment campaigns to property sales. "Look at this. She targets vulnerable families, pushes them for months, then miraculously has buyers ready." Carlos leaned back, whistling. "And she's paying her divorce lawyers with HOA funds. That's not just dumb. That's career-ending." Over 2 caffeine-fueled hours, the battle plan took shape. Operation Documentation Fortress. Carlos would outfit the neighborhood with cameras, sensors, and cloud storage. Operation Incident. File. Linda created airtight reporting forms with space for dates, witnesses, photos, and police case numbers. Operation Audit. Sarah would pull in favors to get a federal standard audit. Mike laid out Operation Legal Annihilation, filing a criminal complaint Tuesday, hitting her with embezzlement, harassment, and false report charges. The timing of annual board elections would let us run Tom, Sarah, and Mike for open seats, flipping the board. Finally, Operation Public Awareness, flyers, social media posts, and press outreach to make sure every neighbor knew where their money had gone. The math was simple. $78,000 stolen from 40 households meant nearly $2,000 each. And once the soccer moms found out, the neighborhood revolt would be unstoppable. Carlos grinned. And when the media hears it's an HOA president stealing money while targeting minority neighbors, this story will write itself. Our psychological advantage was locked in. Our strategy was deceptively simple. Let Brenda believe she was in control while we quietly built an airtight legal case around her. I kept my daily routines normal, acting as if I had no idea what she was plotting, letting her own actions produce more and more evidence against her. "It's a classic rope-a-dope," Mike explained with the calm confidence of someone who'd spent decades dismantling opponents in court. "Let her wear herself out with wild swings while we document every miss." The timing was perfect. Brenda's foreclosure hearing in 3 weeks, the audit results in 2, board elections in 4, 3 major blows landing in rapid succession. Sarah had already contacted Channel 7's fearless investigative reporter, Janet Mills, known for exposing local corruption and winning awards for it. HOA fraud stories meant big viewership, and Janet was eager to cover this unfolding disaster. Then Mike uncovered the detail that could end Brenda's career entirely. Her real estate license renewal in 6 weeks required disclosure of any criminal record. Fraud charges would mean permanent revocation. Financial collapse plus professional ruin. That's total checkmate, he said with the satisfaction of someone describing a perfect sunset. As our little neighborhood war council broke up, Tom put a hand on my shoulder. 2 months ago, you were the quiet guy who kept to himself. Now you're leading a movement. I glanced at our evidence wall and carefully plotted schedules. The transformation from isolated target to community leader felt almost unreal, like discovering you could fly. Sometimes bullies pick the wrong person, I replied. She's about to find out the hard way. The trap was set. All that remained was to let her trigger it herself. Monday morning, the sound of Brenda's panicked voice echoed across the neighborhood like a siren. At 7 a.m., she paced her driveway with her phone pressed to her ear, waving her arms at anyone unlucky enough to make eye contact. I need an emergency board meeting tonight. Something's going on and I need legal protection. From my kitchen window, I saw her trying to rally her dwindling supporters. Clara approached reluctantly, looking like she wished she were anywhere else. Janet followed minutes later, her body language already betraying uncertainty. By noon, every mailbox held an emergency assessment notice demanding $500 per household for immediate legal defense against so-called outsiders threatening community stability. The letter claimed I was suing the entire HOA, something Brenda didn't know was already being recorded. Tom had secretly attended her tiny 3-person meeting and captured it all. They're looking into our finances, Brenda's voice crackled through his recorder. We have to control the story before it gets out of hand. Clara's soft reply was cut short by Brenda's interruption. I've worked too hard to let them ruin this. If I have to leave, fine, but I'm not going alone. The audio was crystal clear, and Mike's grin when he heard it could have lit up the streetlights. By Wednesday night, desperation drove Brenda to a reckless move. 1. My security cameras caught in perfect detail. At 2:47 a.m., dressed head to toe in black, she crept around my property carrying tools, a knife, spray paint, and containers of motor oil. It was an amateur attempt to stage a fake environmental violation. The best part? She did it all under my motion-activated floodlight, her face and license plate in full view. The next morning, a code enforcement officer found her planted evidence, still with store price tags on them, and pointed out that new motor oil doesn't cause the type of violation she claimed. Filing false reports is a federal offense, he told her, clearly unimpressed. I'll be passing this along to the fraud unit. From there, her online meltdown began, rant after rant on the neighborhood Facebook group about outsiders and protecting property values. One late night post practically admitted to everything, and we saved screenshots for the legal team. Then came the bribe. While Carlos was installing cameras for Linda, Brenda approached him. $2,000 cash if you take down those cameras, she said, handing him a thick envelope. Carlos kept working, recording everything on his phone. Maybe you should speak to a lawyer, he told her. I don't need lawyers. I need this neighborhood back under control, she snapped. By Sunday, she'd filed yet another false police report, her 4th in 2 weeks, claiming I had threatened her while I was in my garage fixing a neighbor's transmission in front of 3 witnesses. The responding officer's patience was gone. Ma'am, you're looking at charges. Monday's audit results hit harder than expected. She hadn't just stolen $78,000. She'd been overcharging every household for years, pocketing nearly $96,000 in total. She was out of money, out of allies, and out of time. Then, early Tuesday morning, she tried one last stunt, breaking into the HOA office. The security footage looked like a low-budget heist film gone wrong. There she was, trying to use a stolen master key. She moved with all the subtlety of a marching band in a library, shoving papers into a heavy-duty shredder like she was crafting the most expensive confetti ever made. The silent alarm tripped faster than Brenda's common sense could abandon. Her and Officer Rodriguez arrived to find her buried in a storm of shredded pages that used to be financial records. Ma'am, step away from the computer and put your hands where I can see them, he ordered, probably wondering how his calm Tuesday shift had turned into a bad episode of a crime reality show. Brenda's reply was pure soap opera material. "You don't get it. They're tearing down everything I built. This neighborhood was perfect before they showed up." The air was thick with the smell of overheating electronics and panic as she was cuffed and read her rights. Watching the footage later, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Then I remembered the fake police reports and vandalism claims. Her bail was set at $25,000, which for Brenda might as well have been $25 million given her finances looked like a ship after hitting an iceberg. She spent 3 days in county jail, likely the first time in her life she'd been somewhere without a manager to complain to. While our self-proclaimed ruler was enjoying her temporary government lodging, Clara made a move that would end Brenda's story for good. She visited the jail with a hidden recorder in her purse. What she caught was the kind of evidence lawyers dream about. "I need your help, Clara." Brenda's voice trembled through the phone. "There's cash in my garage behind the water heater. We can both disappear before it gets worse." Clara's shaky, "Brenda, I can't," didn't slow her down. 50 grand. Help me and we start fresh somewhere. They'll never find us." When Mike heard the recording, he let out a low whistle. "She just confessed to theft, conspiracy, and trying to run while in jail. That's record-breaking poor judgment." Thursday night's emergency neighborhood meeting filled the community center to the brim. The air buzzed with anger and the scent of coffee strong enough to clean engine parts. 43 households showed up, their combined frustration powerful, enough to light the Vegas Strip for a week. Tom presented Sarah's final audit like a magician revealing the ultimate card trick. The results were jaw-dropping. Brenda hadn't just taken $78,000, her schemes, including fake vendor payments, inflated contracts, and kickbacks, totaled $112,000 over 3 years. "Every single family here has been stolen from," Tom said, earning gasps and some very creative language from the crowd. "That's an average of $2,800 per household." The vote of no confidence was unanimous, except for Janet, who abstained while looking like she wanted to dig a tunnel to Canada. 33 households demanded her removal, prosecution, and full repayment with interest. Friday morning brought the media storm Brenda had always wanted, just not the starring role she pictured. News vans rolled up before sunrise. Reporters were eager to cover what was quickly being called the biggest HOA scandal in the state. Channel 7 even aired Brenda's mugshot alongside security footage of her frantic shredding session. When asked for my comment, I kept it calm. "This isn't about revenge," I told the camera. "It's about making sure people are held accountable when they abuse their position." The story exploded online. Within hours, HOA horror was trending, and people across the country were sharing their own stories while cheering our win. Brenda's real estate career collapsed overnight. Her license was suspended, former clients complained about shady dealings, and her name became career poison. Her house sold at auction for $280,000, $70,000 below market value, because nothing scares bidders like ongoing criminal cases and TV news coverage. Then came the infamous 3 a.m. Facebook Live video, a teary, rambling monologue where she blamed everyone but herself. "I was only trying to protect this community," she sniffled. The comments lit up like a digital firing squad, with neighbors sharing every old grievance. The video vanished in hours, but the screenshots were immortal. By the time her sentencing hearing arrived on a crisp Thursday morning, it felt like the season finale of a long-running drama. 40-plus neighbors carpooled to court. Judge Hernandez's room was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Brenda sat at the defense table, in an orange jumpsuit that clashed violently with her blonde dye job, looking more like a wilted scarecrow than a feared HOA president. Channel 7 had prime seating to capture every detail. When the judge called for victim statements, I stood first. "Your Honor, this started when she called the police because I opened my own garage." I began. But it was never about a car. It was about power and intimidation. She stole our money, our peace, and our trust in each other as neighbors. Others spoke. Tom with his steady postal worker's voice, Sarah with her precise audit, Linda with her story of how the fight inspired their kids. When it was Brenda's turn, her lawyer put on a performance full of excuses, stress, personal, struggles, everything except actually owning her actions. "My client is deeply sorry," the attorney said. "She's willing to repay and get counseling." Brenda finally stood to speak. And what came out next was pure, unfiltered boldness. Wrapped in crocodile tears, she sniffled. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said, dabbing her eyes with tissues that had seen more work than a pit crew on race day. "This community meant everything to me. I was just trying to keep standards high, protect property values. Sometimes people don't see that leadership means making tough calls." The courtroom's collective sigh could have been recorded as background noise. Even her own lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear under the table. Judge Hernandez had clearly heard enough for one lifetime. "Ms. Wilson, in 30 years on this bench, I've rarely witnessed such a systematic abuse of responsibility, coupled with targeted harassment and intimidation." The judge paused, studying Brenda like someone examining an unusual but unwelcome insect. "You held a position of trust and used it to take from the very people who trusted you. You targeted a homeowner with false police reports that could have ended in disaster. You destroyed evidence, tried to avoid jurisdiction, and even now refuse to take responsibility for your actions." The judge's voice left no room for doubt. "This court sentences you to 4 years in state prison, full repayment of $112,000 plus court costs, and 5 years supervised probation after release." The gavel came down like a thunderclap, and the courtroom erupted in applause. But it wasn't normal applause. It was deeper, richer, like the sound of justice settling a long debt. As Brenda was led away in shackles, she glanced at our side of the room. There was no apology in her eyes, just cold resentment toward those who dared hold her accountable. Outside, on the courthouse steps, cameras rolled while neighbors celebrated. A reporter stuck a mic toward me. "Mr. Rodriguez, what would you tell other homeowners facing HOA abuse?" I thought of everything we'd endured, the fear, the records we kept, the unity we built, the months of preparation. Document everything. Build community. "Truth wins," I said, feeling the weight of 3 months' struggle and triumph in those 6 words. That quote would go viral within hours, becoming a rallying cry for HOA reform nationwide. But in that sunny moment, surrounded by neighbors who had become like family, I realized something bigger. We hadn't just stopped a bully. We'd proven what people can do when they stand together. 6 months later, Willowbrook Estates was unrecognizable in the best way. Weekend barbecues replaced tension. Kids played outside without fear. Our new HOA board, Tom as president, Sarah as treasurer, Mike on legal matters, introduced unheard-of ideas like transparency and fairness. Financial reports went online. Meetings were announced ahead of time. Violation notices came with photo proof and reasonable timelines. The community garden, once destined for shutdown, bloomed behind the clubhouse. Neighbors who barely spoke before now shared tomato seedlings like treasured gifts. Ironically, property values rose 15% since the leadership change. Turns out buyers prefer neighborhoods known for unity and integrity over ones known for corruption. Restitution payments came monthly, each one a reminder that accountability pays back in more ways than one. Watching people pay off debts and plan long-delayed vacations felt like economic justice in action. Prison life was less glamorous for Brenda. According to Clara, who stayed in contact out of curiosity, our former neighborhood strong-arm was now working laundry duty for cents an hour, sharing space with someone convicted of armed robbery. Meanwhile, film students turned our story into Garage Door Justice, an American story, which won at a regional festival and went national. I donated my appearance fees to create the Willowbrook Automotive Education Scholarship, funded, fittingly, by Brenda's restitution payments. 3 teens have already used it to attend technical school. Seeing Diego Martinez graduate with an automotive degree was better than any car trophy. My personal life had surprises, too. Sarah and I had been dating for 4 months, drawn together by the fight we'd both taken part in. The Camaro that started this saga became famous in car circles, even featured in magazines as the car that stood up to an HOA. I've had offers to buy it, but some things aren't for sale, especially symbols of standing against unfairness. Now, when I head to car shows, I take neighborhood kids along, teaching them about engines and the value of fixing things yourself. The legal precedent we set is being used in HOA fraud cases in 3 states. Mike has been invited to speak at legal conferences. Our documentation process is taught in community organizing classes. The state legislature even passed the Willowbrook Act, requiring yearly audits for HOAs with large budgets. The signing made for great photos, but the real win was knowing other communities wouldn't have to endure what we had. An email from a veteran in Phoenix last month reminded me why this matters. Our story inspired him to stand up to his HOA. I now help other neighborhoods for free, sharing what worked for us. Our block parties are now monthly, with food, laughter, and friendships that Brenda's reign had nearly erased. Kids play together, adults trade barbecue recipes and home repair tips. As I write this, I hear Tom's lawnmower and smell Linda's fresh baking drifting into my garage, simple sounds of a healthy, helping community. Share your HOA experiences in the comments below. Your persistence might inspire someone else to fight for fairness. And if you enjoyed this story of justice and unity, hit like, leave your thoughts, and subscribe so you won't miss next week's episode. Karen meets a service dog and learns the hard way about federal laws. From all of us at HOA Stories, thanks for watching today's episode, where justice once again found its way home.